So now you've closed plenty of deals, right? You've talked to plenty of business owners. What are a few questions that you would ask a business owner if you're going to bet?
I love this. It's probably my favorite now. Like you had asked me prepping for this call, like what is the most challenging part? And that was it because I was so desperate. And I know a lot of people out there are in the same boat of like, man, I want someone to take the leads. I want to prove the model. I want to actually take this from a hobby to like cash, and I want to see it for myself. Everyone else is doing it. So I get the desperation mindset and like the context of like, somebody just take my leads. But for me, what I found to be the best is I'll just pull up the list on Google Maps. I'll just blitz them and I'll just go down the phone. If they pick up, great, I'll have a conversation. I'll get into the questions. But what I'm looking for initially is I'll just leave voicemails. And what I'm waiting for is I want to see how fast they get back to me. That's my first thing. I'm vetting them to see how responsive they're going to be. Because if they don't get back to me, or if a day goes by more than 24 hours, most likely they're going to treat other leads I send them that way, and they're not going to be closing stuff. If they're closing stuff, they're going to be sending me money. It's going to be good. Then as they start calling back, I run the script just like Nick has, which is great. And most of the time they're hooked. Like who doesn't want a free lead or a commission, whatever, how you approach it to get them hooked. As soon as I have them hooked, I do a pullback. That's the new thing. I back up. I'm like, okay, I make it sound really cool. They get interested. He's going to send me this. I tell them the lead. I always have one or two in the chamber. My favorite thing is I try to stack up one or two. I qualify them myself. I make sure they're legit. So when I call, I can be like, I got these. I know that this is a legit thing. So they know it's real. It's not just like, hey, do you take a lead? It's like, no, this is the address. This is the project. This is what it's going to be. And immediately I do a pullback. I'm like, hey, in the same way that you want to build trust with me and see if my leads are legit, I want to build trust with you and see if you can close. Because at the end of the day, I'm looking to build with someone long-term. And so I start backing up, and normally they're like, okay, well, what do you want to know? And so I go through a list of questions. Like the first thing is like, I'm like, how many crews you running? If they say one crew, it's not a deal breaker, but I'm looking for them to say 2 or 3. And they say one crew or they say 2, I'm like, that's fine. How fast can you spin up another crew? My next question. Because I want to know if they're connecting. If guys are like, oh, it might take me a little time. A lot of these guys who've been doing it for 10, 20 years, they're like, oh, I know everybody. Putting another crew together isn't a problem. I'm looking for the confidence to be able to do it, and the guy who's connected with a network. Because if I blow up the leads, you can service 10 to 15 leads a month. That's fine. You don't need to scale your operations. But if I start sending you 30 to 50, I want to know that you can call, pick up the phone, put a crew together, and you can start outsourcing this and scaling your operation, right? So after they're like, yeah, I got a network, I can scale, that kind of thing. I go, how much time do you spend working in the business versus on it? Meaning like, how much time are you spending actually doing the concrete jobs, and how much time are you spending closing deals? And what I'm looking for there is like the guy who's like, oh, all I do is give estimates and close deals. I maybe show up at the beginning of the deal just so that the client can see me and feel confident, but then my guys execute. And that's exactly what I'm looking for. If a guy's like, oh, I do all the jobs myself, big red flag. If you're on a job all the time and you're the guy who's not outsourcing this to your other team or knows how to run a team, you're probably not answering the phone when new leads come in. You're probably tied up and you're not going to be able to be closing deals, which is the whole purpose of what I'm looking for, right? And so if they check the boxes, they're like, yep, I got multiple crews. I got a big network. I can spin guys up. I spend more time closing. And I'll even be bold. Like once I start to see that, you'll hear if these guys are confident enough. The ones that you want are the guys who have a little bit of this cockiness of like, yeah, no, I close all the time. I'm good. I ask them like, well, what's your close percentage? I'm really trying to like, look, you got to convince me to give you these free leads. Actually, I'm 1 foot out the door, even though I got them free and I said I was going to give them to you. I'm still may back out. And I'll even throw in like my pullback is like, I don't know if this is the right fit. I want to make sure that you're hungry, right? Like I'm approaching it, like sell me on it, convince me. And then so once I get that, I go back to the vision of like what this model is. I say, just to give you some context of how this works, I'm not looking to just give you leads. I'm not an Angie's List and I'm not a home advisor. These aren't leads. The way this works is my webpage is on Google, and we're taking over a targeted region. The idea is if we partner up, this is the start. My plan would be, what other areas do you service? And how do we go and build sites there together and take over the region and make you the premier concrete guy, the premier foam insulation guy, the guy who owns the territory that basically sits back, collects the paychecks, and has all the crews and keeps them working, keeps people employed, and is a job creator. I'm looking for the guy who catches the vision of like, oh, this is bigger than my business. This is about taking over a region, being the best guy in that region and employing a ton of people and changing families' lives. And that's a big vision. And it's not necessary that they necessarily need to have that, but it is an indicator of someone who's like, yeah, that's what I want, that for my family. I want that for my employees. I want to keep them busy. A lot of these guys are like, hey, I got all these commercial jobs, but these residential jobs are what's put food on the table for them in between these bigger jobs. And that's what's great about, the Google stuff, because it's predominantly residential. And so it's tapping into that even on the phone of understanding their why a bit more, so I don't waste my time.